Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Corser. I am the Board Secretary of United Financial Credit Union and an Associate Professor of Computer Science at Saginaw Valley State University. Pleased to be here this morning to discuss the important topic of artificial intelligence, particularly how boards, credit union boards, can use AI to improve their experience, their decision making in board packets and other type of strategic activities. So before we can even start this topic, there's a whole bunch of you that are thinking about reasons to not apply AI at the board level. I can completely understand and respect those objections, but let's make sure that we've talked about them. One is that the board members will become lazy. They will not read the board packet. They will not want to really know all the details that are going on in the credit union. That is a risk. There's no question about that. There's already board members who do not read the board packets. I would suggest taking a cold hard look at what the problem is with the board packets. Maybe they're not reading it because it's not summarized. Maybe they're not reading it for some reason. We might be able to use AI to help that problem. That's not what this talk is about. This talk is about how you can use it if you decide to use it. But again, if that's an objection, then maybe you won't use AI. That's fine. Another objection is that the board packet, if you upload it into the computer, it's going to be used by the AI training system to collect that information, and then it might get reported out to somebody else in another prompt and result. Confidentiality, privacy is a very important situation, a very important issue. We need to make sure our users and members' data is kept private. However, there are ways to mitigate that problem. One of them is to have a policy of removing all kinds of personally identified information from anything that's uploaded. That might not be good enough for some people. Some people might say, hey, we need to implement a private LLM, a separate computer where there is no access to the internet. It never gets uploaded into the training system. If you're big enough, you might even get an enterprise version of the Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever tool you decide to use. But that is a known objection. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. You have to make a decision whether or not you want to do that. Last but not least, AIs can be crazy. In case you haven't used them before, a lot of people who do use an AI, they'll ask a question and it will give a ridiculous result that can't possibly be true. Or it might give a plausible result that can't possibly be true. There needs to be some way to mitigate the problem of hallucination and false results. We absolutely need to be critical and question the AI results. I would recommend putting a disclaimer on the top of everything that's AI generated, so that it says, please verify these results somehow. But again, I don't want to tell you all the great things about AI before telling you that I understand there are objections to them. So let's suppose that you've decided we are going to apply AI somehow, somewhere at the board level. Well, what's the reason to do that? Why? We already saw why not to use AI. Let's look at why we might want to use AI. Number one reason, we want to show that we want to actually use the information to show the board members the most meaningful possible information in the least amount of time. So the idea is, if you have to read these long, what are those, 100, 200, sometimes 300-page board packets with spreadsheets, graphs, all kinds of details, yes, you can read it all, but can you really absorb the key information? Can you analyze that and compare it over long, huge amounts of time? The LLM can. This could help you really improve your decision making at the board level. That's why we want to consider it. So let's take a look at some specific ideas. That's what you're here for. What can I personally do that's going to make the board function more effectively? Well, I'm going to suggest 4 things. 1, summarize your board packet. Nothing wrong with reading the board packet in detail. I highly recommend it. But sometimes if you can summarize the issues, you can kind of know what the big story is being told, and when you're reading the document, it makes it more meaningful. Number 2, highlight anomalies, highlight any kind of outlier. And this is very important because you could read through the board packet and miss an important detail. If that detail is unusual compared to other board packets that have been uploaded, the AI is more likely to highlight that and more likely to see it. You can request that, and it might be important for your discussion at the board meeting. The third one is you can take a look at your strategic planning results month by month. You can download data from the NCUA, upload that into your ChatGPT or whatever LLM you're using, and then you can see how you're doing against your own KPIs, month by month. So that's kind of cool. Last but not least, and this is one of the things I think is most important, we can, instead of looking at our board packet as a document to read, we can look at the board packet as a whole bunch of data that we want to analyze. So instead of just taking what's given to us, we can ask dynamic queries and maybe even do what-if scenarios to predict what's coming next. So how do we do this? Well, if we want to summarize the board packet, you're going to have to upload all the data into some kind of software. That means you're going to do PDFs, spreadsheets, Word documents. It could be zip files, even images and diagrams. You can upload them there, even videos. As time goes on, these things become more and more capable. But you can upload all that information. Then you can query it. You can type a prompt. There's a whole sub topic of how to do this prompt engineering, but even simple prompts are going to give you useful information. Ratios, themes, significant changes. A lot of times you can tie it to recent news events that are happening, so you can ask dynamic questions about it, about the board packet information that you uploaded. And then you can also say, well, hey, give me some highlights on the outliers. What's different this month from every other month? And these things can be interesting. I mean, so I've had ones where I've asked questions about our marketing campaign, and it told me, oh, you had more website hits this month. Oh, I didn't even notice that, right? I didn't notice I had more website hits. And so we discussed that in the board meeting, but I would have never noticed it if I hadn't analyzed the board packet. Finally, if you can summarize those results and you can get a 3-paragraph description can really help. Here it says, turn 100 pages into 3 paragraphs. It might be that you need to read all those 100 paragraphs, but it sure is nice to have those 3 major points, the 3 big issues that you need to discuss, because you only have so much time in a board meeting, and you want to make the most of it. What about highlighting outliers? So I just picked an example, the spread analysis report. Everybody reviews the spread analysis report every month. It's a very detailed report. Usually you're comparing month to month, and for those of you that keep up with the numbers, it's all good and dandy. But wouldn't it be interesting to see the spread analysis of other organizations as you're going through that, or even look at the historical results from years and years ago? When I first started on the board at United Financial, we looked at the last month and a year ago the same month. But it would be nice to also look at all 12 months or the last 5 years. It may or may not come up with any information, but it's nice to know that that's been analyzed. Here is just a hypothetical credit union. It's not real. This is not real information, but it kind of shows you that you have these data points, and they're interesting, but it kind of shows key outliers that you might want to be aware of. As we're going through our year, and we're going through these months of credit union, monthly board meetings, we may want to see, well, how is our credit union doing compared to our strategic planning results? When we did our strategic plan in the winter or the spring, how are we doing to those points, right? And so, we have reports for that, but these summarized results can sometimes zero in on key strategic planning points, and it should save time preparing the report, but it's also something that you could do if you had access to the data as a board member to analyze and ask those questions before you ever walk into the board meeting, so you can be better prepared. So here's an example. You can see that it gives us a competitive analysis. It shows what is our competitive position compared to, say, the top 2 other competitors in our area. No reason why you couldn't add banks in there also. If there's any public available information about banks, we can compare the banking competitors as well as credit union competitors. And last but not least, this is something that almost nobody does, is monthly predictive what-if scenarios. It may or may not pay off, but if something big were to happen, COVID or a major interest rate change or who knows what, you could theoretically adapt quickly if you had one of these AI tools in place. Or if you're just kind of curious and you want to talk about that in the board meeting, you take the data and you just want to analyze it, you're a board member, you take a look at the reports and you can say, well, hey, ChatGPT or Claude, what would our financial position look like if this happened or if that happened? With just a stack of paper or even a electronic stack of paper, you can't really ask those what-if questions. But with the LLMs, you have that capability at the tip of your fingers. So those are the 4 suggestions that I have that you might want to do. You might ask yourself, okay, I want to try it out. I want to implement AI. Maybe you'll take it in stages. I would suggest the first thing you do is a free or low-cost solution. Do it yourself. See, try querying things. If you're not a computer person, you might try a DFY instead of DIY. DFY meaning done for you. Hire a service to do the analysis. Pay a couple $100 and have them write all the reports for you. And then one of the cool things about the outside service is these tools are changing so rapidly that the do-it-yourself option, by the time you learn how the tool works, you've lost the payoff. Some new tool has come and replaced it. So if you use the outside service, whoever's in that line of work will stay up to date with the tool, and so you can get the most value for the dollar, possibly. It's up to you to decide that. So if you decide you want to put AI into action, you're going to need to prepare to input information. You're going to have to prepare how you're going to have the AI process it, whether it's going to be a paid service, the free version, or maybe it'd be an enterprise version, or possibly even a private LLM. And then you got to figure out what type of output you want. The way that the details, what you actually type to make all that happen, changes by the month, changes by the week. So you need to stay on top of these things. But I think if you can take a look at what is the low-hanging fruit, what's the information that could pay off the best with the least amount of learning curve, that would be a good strategy. Okay, so bottom line is we're trying to get smarter board packets. We're trying to basically get better strategic planning and strategic oversight activities, and the ability to ask questions on the fly with all this data. That's what we're trying to do with AI. That's the vision of it. And so hopefully that has been helpful for you to see how that works. Your next step is to take a look at the possibilities. There are websites for this sort of thing, but I would like to show you also a demonstration of how this all works hands-on, which we will get to later. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.